Pawlikowski's Ida presents a multi-dimensional aesthetic of haunted space. The film has been championed widely for its intimate take on alternative Polish Jewish histories, yet often overlooked in readings of Ida's affective construction of loss is the function of the soundscape, and the manner in which its interplay with Pawlikowski's visual patterning positions the spectator within a spatiality of subjective virtual grief. Pawlikowski frequently orients his audience via a stubbornly placed, retracted and upward tilted camera, which decenters the human subject, and when paired with the characteristic height of 4x3 framing, attributes a stifling weight to the surrounding vista. Amid the vacuous heavy silence of the film's equally tangible soundscape, this appears to drain autonomy and agency from the protagonists, despite their otherwise striking dispositions. In this interrogative audio-visual application of the portrait lens to the integral setting of the film, the very fabric of its construction gives form to an ineffable localized haunting, a politicized geography which, as Matilda Moroz writes in her article on loss and grief in the film, presents itself as a post-traumatic landscape in which the individual and the collective intersect. In Ida's spiritual zones, the anachronism of religious imagery decenters conventional notions of haunted space. Large archaic rooms bear the palimpsest of religious abstinence, yet in Poland's post-war setting, such absence becomes imbued with grievous amnesia. Considering these visual elements alongside the dimensional traits of the cinematic soundscape in what R. Maurice Schaeffer terms sonic topography, the audible qualities of the convent in which we meet Ida erode conventional filmic spatiality. High, impenetrable, and monolithic walls exclude any bleeding through of outer noise, amplifying only the most minute timbres of silent, reverent tasks. The diegetic key sound is reflected back upon the subject, privileging internality. In this, there is a depersonalizing slippage between place, practice, and persona. In her immediate environment, Ida's incompleteness is given form. The absorbed unnatural silence of the convent acts as portent to the revelation of an unspoken grief which will haunt our protagonist. Detached from the cityscape, the convent exists, walled in, upon a circular temporality, immune to the grief narrative of the broader nation, and in denial of its culpability within national trauma. The zoning of the convent always features natural light, which bleeds into the scene from an often unseen external source in the form of small windows. Here, the internalized soundscape and visitant light form a juxtaposition illustrative of the manner in which the exterior traumas of Poland's nationhood still bleakly illuminate the changeless complacency of the church. In Grief and the Undialectical Image, Eugenie Brinkema writes that light empties the image and simultaneously creates it, founds the image of which it is its finitude. In Ida, the cinematic form illuminates a space, which, like the regime that governs its internal world, appears rigid whilst on the brink of collapse. Grief finds frailty in the minutiae of audible contact between environment and human bodies governed by insubstantial forces beyond their awareness. Integral to Pawlikowski's nuanced construction of loss is the zone of Wanda's apartment. The space is sparse, unremarkable, with thin conductive walls symbolic of its occupant's feeble performance of composure. We may expect such an intimate setting to reflect the inhabitant's internal warmth, yet any suggestion of Wanda's solitude is underscored and invaded by the rumble of a cityscape marked by trauma, a noisily stagnant populace, mobile, yet not progressing, a grieving nation, audibly masked by the shallow immediate pleasures of jazz, and through the binding of sound and image, its apparent counterpart in alcoholism. In Trauma and Cinema, Kaplan and Wang cite the burdens of such cultures of consumption as a form of numbing through small doses of daily, ritualized violence. where faith provides Ida with both physical and metaphysical seclusion. Wanda, a direct witness to Poland's historic violence, is denied the comfort of amnesia in lieu of habitual inner violence, given sonic form through perpetual traffic. Referring back to Matilda Moreau's, this interpenetration between private and collective space projects Wanda's virtual trauma image upon her equally scarred environment. In grief, the virtual and the real coalesce, external to Wanda, forming a prison-like zone designed to drain her selfhood. The final haunted zone I will investigate is that of Ida's antithetically broad, yet suffocating natural space. As the road narrative meanders, akin to the lost souls of its subjects, the environmental zone appears liminal. Referring back to the concept of a characterized portrayal of nationhood, Poland appears stunted, trapped between halted timelines. Long shots defy discernible period, as motor vehicles coexist with Wagnerian motifs, whilst fine-grained film stock and tableau framing evokes a snapshot temporality. In his writing on hauntology, or the framing of melancholic nostalgia, Mark Fisher cites such anachronism as key to the formalization of loss. Through its pairing with unfulfilled landscapes, Ida's meditative silence provides space for optimism, in its capacity for listening and growth. Yet Fisher writes that the future is always experienced as a haunting, as a virtuality that already impinges upon the present. What hauntology mourns is the disappearance of a potential future. In this there is plurality in the implications of this third zoning of grief, as the deadened aesthetic simultaneously undermines and perpetuates its own potential for progress. The only uses of minimalist non-diegetic sound in the film are within this natural setting. Most notable is the low pervasive hum that escapes the earth in accompaniment with the excavation of the Lebenstein's remains. This sound, unlike its predecessors, is without body or form, and transcends the realist grain of the action thus far. In this, there is a somewhat bleak suggestion that it's only in an ultimate recession to the terrestrial origin of nationhood that the entombed subjectivities of the spiritual and the urban may reconvene and face their traumas. Grief, loss, and trauma are ineffable forces prone to decay the border between the individual and broader vacancy. Various theoretical approaches, studies of the soundscape, post-structuralism, ecology, trauma, hauntology, and existentialism, may provide a framework through which to apprehend the intangible, yet the lingua franca of the poetic image and its sonic tangibility appears the most articulate. In Ida, Pawlikowski's zoning gives form to such diverse yet faceless absence, within a setting in which silence seems the only appropriate substitute for tears.